Stella stood in front of her small apartment window, the city lights shimmering below, her mind whirling. She'd spent the past 2 years working relentlessly on her product line, a line she was sure could change the game in sustainable fashion. Every sketch, every meeting with manufacturers, every pitch she'd made to investors, everything had been for this moment. And now, it was about to launch. Her heart raced with excitement as she ran her hand through her hair, her eyes drifting to the stack of prototypes neatly arranged on her desk. But that excitement quickly turned into a familiar gnawing feeling in the pit of her stomach. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Leah, her best friend. The message was simple. "Check out my Instagram. I'm about to make a big announcement." Stella's eyebrows furrowed. Leah had been her best friend for years, the one person she trusted completely with her ideas, especially this one. They had even spent countless hours together, discussing the dream that had now become Stella's product line. Leah had always encouraged her, until recently, when she seemed a little too interested in the details of Stella's venture. Leah had always been a bit too charming, a little too eager to be involved in everything Stella did. But she'd never suspected anything like this. Curious, Stella opened the Instagram app. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the post. It was a sleek promotional video, showcasing a product line remarkably similar to her own. The designs, the colors, the patterns, they were all the same. Only this time, the brand name wasn't hers. It was Leah's. Stella's breath caught in her throat. She blinked, trying to process what she was seeing. Her stomach churned with disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Leah, of all people, had she stolen her idea? Stella had trusted Leah with everything. They'd been friends for years. Leah knew how hard Stella had worked to bring her idea to life. She knew about the countless sleepless nights spent designing and perfecting every detail. They'd even talked about the challenges Stella faced in the industry, how difficult it had been to get investors to take her seriously as a female entrepreneur. And yet, here was Leah, flaunting what appeared to be the same idea, the same product line. And what's worse, it was being marketed as Leah's own innovation. A cold feeling washed over Stella. She couldn't breathe. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just unfolded. Had Leah been pretending to be supportive all this time, while secretly plotting to steal her vision? Stella pulled her phone from her ear, the text from Leah still open on the screen. "Can't wait to hear your thoughts on the launch. I know you'll be proud of me." The words felt like a slap in the face. Pride? Pride? How could Leah be proud of herself when all she'd done was take something that didn't belong to her? Stella's hands trembled as she slowly lowered her phone. She felt her throat tighten. This was no longer about a product launch. It was personal. For a moment, she thought about reaching out to Leah, confronting her about what she'd seen. But Stella wasn't the type to make rash decisions. She needed to think. She needed to figure out her next move. But one thing was clear. If Leah thought she could get away with this, she was wrong. Stella had a plan, one that Leah would never see coming. She had a hidden weapon, something Leah didn't know about, something that would put everything into perspective. But for now, she just had to gather her thoughts, one step at a time. Stella paced back and forth in her apartment, her mind a chaotic storm of thoughts. The anger was there, simmering beneath the surface, but it wasn't the overwhelming emotion right now. What cut deeper was the feeling of betrayal. How could Leah, her closest friend, do something like this? Stella stopped in front of the window again, staring out at the city as the early evening light painted the skyline with shades of purple and gold. She felt sick to her stomach, but there was a part of her that kept replaying the past few months in her mind, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Had Leah been planting the seeds for this all along? She remembered those late nights when they'd met for coffee, Leah always asking about the details of Stella's plans, her designs, her potential launch partners, her target market. At the time, Stella had thought nothing of it. Leah was her friend. Of course, she'd be interested in the product line, she had said more than once. After all, Leah was working in marketing, and her advice had always seemed valuable. But now, with Leah's Instagram post staring back at her, the dots were connecting in ways Stella had been too naive to see before. The way Leah had insisted on knowing every detail, the constant encouragement that always felt just a little too intense, the sudden push for Leah to start her own brand. It was all so clear now. Stella grabbed her phone again, scrolling back through her text conversations with Leah. There it was, a message from 2 months ago, right when Stella had started getting prototypes for the product line ready. Leah had asked if she could help with the marketing side of things, and Stella, trusting her completely, had agreed. "I'm all about helping my best friend," Leah had said. "Anything I can do to help you get your name out there." Looking back, it felt like a trap. As Stella continued to scroll, she came across another message from last week. Leah had suggested a quick meeting to discuss something important about branding. Stella had been in the middle of finalizing the launch plans, but she'd made time for Leah, thinking they could go over some of the marketing strategies. Instead, it now seemed like Leah had been laying the groundwork for something else entirely. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from her lawyer, Jenna. Stella had reached out to Jenna earlier that day, unsure if there was anything legally she could do about what had happened. Jenna's firm specialized in intellectual property, and Stella hoped she could help her figure out her next steps. "Hey Jenna," Stella said, answering the call. "Stella, I've been looking over your case, and I'm going to be blunt. This looks like a clear case of idea theft," Jenna said. "Have you filed for any kind of patent or trademark?" Stella's heart skipped a beat. It was the one thing she had done right, something that, in hindsight, might just save her. "I did. I filed a patent for my product line last year, right before the prototypes started getting made." "That's good, very good," Jenna replied. "That gives you a solid foundation to work from. If Leah's designs are identical or even too similar to yours, we might have a strong legal case." Stella felt a weight lift from her shoulders. At least there was a legal avenue to explore. But it wasn't just about the product or the patent. It was about something more. It was about the trust Leah had violated. The way Leah had turned her passion and hard work into an opportunity to take what wasn't hers. "I'm not sure what to do next, Jenna," Stella admitted. "Part of me wants to confront her, to tell her I know. But then I'm just not sure if she'd even care, or if I'd make things worse. I get it, it's complicated. But I'd suggest you let me handle the legal side for now. We can issue a cease and desist letter. In the meantime, I'd recommend avoiding any direct confrontation. You need to keep your cool." Stella sighed. It was what she needed to hear, even though it wasn't what she wanted. She'd always been a problem solver, someone who faced things head on, but this situation felt different. Leah was her friend, or at least she had been. Now, Stella realized, she needed to protect what was hers. After hanging up with Jenna, Stella leaned back in her chair. Her thoughts turned inward. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She had worked so hard, poured everything into the stream, and now it seemed like Leah had taken it all without a second thought. But Stella wasn't going to let that happen. No matter how hurt or betrayed she felt, she knew she had the upper hand now. The patent wasn't just a piece of paper, it was her idea, her innovation, and she wasn't going to let Leah steal that from her. Stella had to act, and she had to act fast. The next few days passed in a blur. Stella's mind was focused solely on one thing: how to take control of the situation. She had a patent, something tangible that would prove her ownership of the product line, something Leah couldn't deny. But just having the patent wasn't enough. She needed to make sure everyone knew it. Stella sat at her desk, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. The email to her lawyer, Jenna, had been drafted and redrafted a dozen times, but she hadn't hit send yet. She needed to be strategic. Sending the email without preparation would be a reaction. And Stella wasn't someone who acted on impulse. This time, she had to be calculated. She picked up her phone and opened the email draft one more time, reviewing the details Jenna had suggested. How they would officially notify Leah's team of the infringement, how they would demand she cease selling the product, and how they would reserve the right to take further legal action if necessary. The letter would be firm, but not vindictive. Before she could finalize the message, another text from Leah popped up on her screen. "Stella, I know you're busy, but I really hope we can talk about the product line. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. Let me know when you have time." Stella's hands tightened around her phone. Leah wanted to talk. Of course she did. Now that the tables had turned, Leah was trying to make amends, to clean up the mess she'd created. The audacity, the anger bubbled up inside her, and for a moment, she considered texting back, confronting Leah right then and there. but Stella knew that would be the easy way out. She couldn't let Leah off the hook that easily. Instead, Stella took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and hit send on the email to Jenna. The message was clear: it's time. Within an hour, Jenna responded with the final legal notice, a cease and desist letter. It was official now. The legal ball was in motion. But Stella still felt unsettled. She had filed her patent for the product line almost a year ago. She had every right to protect it. Yet the thought of what would follow this email, a public confrontation, the scrutiny of her business, the possibility of a friendship forever fractured, made her hesitate. But she couldn't let fear hold her back. Leah had already crossed the line, and Stella wasn't going to be the one to let it go unnoticed. The final piece of her plan was the part that sent a wave of adrenaline rushing through her veins. She was going to expose the hidden patent herself. Stella logged into her social media accounts, and for the first time, she started crafting a post not just to her followers, but to the world. She needed to make sure the people who had been following her journey, watching her build her brand from the ground up, knew the truth. They needed to know that she had the idea first, and that she wasn't afraid to stand up for what was right. The post was simple but powerful. A photo of her holding a document, a screenshot of her patent filing, signed, sealed, and official. I'm about to tell you something I never thought I would have to. I've spent years working on a product line that I believe can make a difference. I've shared that vision with people I trusted. But recently, I learned that a trusted friend has taken that vision and claimed it as her own. While I'm proud of what she's accomplished, I cannot stand by while my work is being taken without acknowledgement. Here's the truth. I filed a patent for my product line over a year ago. I've worked tirelessly to bring this vision to life, and I'm not going to let anyone steal my hard work. My vision is mine. Stella paused before hitting post, staring at the screen. This was a line she couldn't uncross. Once she shared this, there was no going back. But that was exactly why it had to be done. With a final breath, she pressed send. Within minutes, the post was up. Comments began flooding in, friends and followers expressing support, messages of encouragement. But the most important comment of all was the one that came through right after. What's going on, Stella? Is this about Leah? Stella's stomach tightened. Of course, the connection was immediate. Leah's followers had likely already started to notice the parallels between the two brands. Leah had made the mistake of making her product too public too soon. Now the entire world could see the truth. Stella set the phone down and walked away from the desk, letting herself breathe. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in days, she felt in control. Her idea was protected. Now the world knew the truth. The first message came a few hours later when Stella was sitting on her couch, scrolling through the flood of notifications on her phone. The comments on her post were still coming in. Support, disbelief, shock, and even a few direct messages asking if this was really happening. But then, at 9:45 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text message from Leah. Stella, we need to talk. I'm not sure what's going on, but I saw your post. What are you doing? Stella's heart skipped a beat. She'd known this moment was coming, but it still hit harder than she expected. Leah was reaching out, probably trying to salvage the situation. Stella could feel the heat rise in her chest. What was she doing? Leah had crossed the line, and now she was trying to act like nothing had happened. Stella's fingers hovered over her phone for a moment, contemplating her response. Should she call her? Should she try to explain? But then, the memory of Leah's marketing posts, the ones that looked so strikingly similar to her own designs, flashed in her mind. She had nothing left to explain. Leah had stolen her idea, and now there was no going back. Stella typed back, slowly but firmly. You took my idea, Leah. You've been copying my designs, and now you're trying to make it look like it's yours. You've crossed a line, and I'm not going to pretend like this is okay. The response was almost immediate. Stella, you're blowing this way out of proportion. I didn't steal anything from you. I've been working on my own line for months, and I've had people tell me it's different. You know that I'd never steal from you. Stella felt her anger intensify. Leah's words, so defensive, so dismissive, were only making things worse. How dare she act like she hadn't been listening to Stella's every word, learning the ins and outs of her plans, then suddenly working on her own line that looked eerily similar. "Leah," Stella typed, her fingers shaking as she tried to maintain control. "I have the patent. I filed it a year ago, before you even started with your designs. I have the proof." The text bubble paused for a long time before Leah's reply came through. "This is ridiculous. Are you seriously going to ruin our friendship over this? I didn't even know you had a patent. And anyway, who cares about a patent when we're friends? We've always been there for each other." The words hit harder than Stella expected. Who cares about a patent? Of course Leah didn't care. She didn't care about the work, the effort, or the countless hours Stella had spent fighting to get her idea off the ground. What Leah cared about was herself, her success, and her ability to take what wasn't hers and make it look like it was her own. Stella stood up, pacing again. Her hands were clenched at her sides. She had to take a step back. Leah was still in denial, still trying to twist the situation to her advantage. This wasn't just about the product anymore. This was about the betrayal, the crushing realization that someone she trusted had taken something deeply personal and used it for their own gain. She glanced at her phone again, but this time, the notification that caught her eye was from Jenna. "Stella, we've received confirmation that the cease and desist letter has been delivered. I've also filed a formal complaint with the patent office. Leah's team won't be able to continue without serious legal ramifications." The words gave her a small sense of relief, but it didn't solve everything. The emotional toll of this situation, the weight of seeing a friendship fall apart, the sting of betrayal, was something she didn't know how to handle. She sat back down at her desk, staring at the screen. Leah was still messaging her, but Stella didn't want to engage anymore. The relationship was already fractured beyond repair. Whatever Leah's intentions had been, whatever excuse she might try to offer, the truth was out there now, and the damage had been done. Stella wasn't just fighting for a product anymore. She was fighting for her right to be recognized, to have her hard work respected. She took a deep breath. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. The next step was clear. She needed to push forward with her product line, her vision. The world needed to see that Stella wasn't just the friend who had been wronged. She was a force in the industry. Her creativity, her dedication, and her hard work deserved recognition. And that's exactly what she was going to get. Stella spent the following days buried in work. The anger and hurt from Leah's betrayal hadn't gone away, but they had been overshadowed by an unwavering determination to push forward. She wasn't going to let one person destroy everything she had worked for. With the cease and desist letter sent and the patent office complaint filed, the legal side of things was beginning to take shape. But Stella knew that wasn't the only way to handle this. The world was watching now. Her social media post had gone viral. Her supporters rallied behind her, and some had even begun tagging Leah's brand, questioning its legitimacy. It was time for Stella to turn the tide in her favor and use the momentum she'd built to her advantage. Stella sat at her desk, typing furiously into her laptop. She was drafting an email to her investors, partners, and industry contacts. She needed them to know that despite everything, she was still in control. She wasn't going to allow the drama surrounding her brand to distract from what she had built. Thank you for your continued support in these challenging times. As you know, I've worked tirelessly to bring a groundbreaking sustainable fashion line to life. Recently, an unfortunate situation arose, and I feel it's important to address it directly. While I've been faced with unexpected challenges, I am proud to reaffirm my commitment to my product and my mission. I'm more determined than ever to see this project through to success. She paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. It wasn't easy to make the decision to continue, especially when the path ahead was fraught with personal betrayal. But Stella knew it was the right choice. She was building something that mattered, not just for herself, but for the future of sustainable fashion. Once the email was sent, Stella felt a small wave of relief wash over her. The business side of things was secured, but there was still something unresolved, something she couldn't ignore. She hadn't spoken to Leah since their last text exchange, and though Stella had made it clear that she was no longer interested in salvaging the friendship, part of her wondered whether Leah would ever admit to what she had done. It was late when Stella received another text from Leah. "I can't believe you're doing this. I thought we were friends. You've made this so public. Don't you think it's time we talk in person? I miss you." Stella stared at the message for a moment. She could feel the raw emotion in Leah's words, but there was no turning back. Leah's actions had been deliberate, and no amount of pleading would change that. Stella knew that Leah was only reaching out now because the situation had spiraled out of control. "We don't need to talk, Leah. I've already made my decision. You made yours when you chose to take something that wasn't yours. Friendship doesn't work that way." Stella hit send, her thumb lingering over the screen for a moment longer. She wasn't sure if Leah would respond. She wasn't sure if she even cared anymore. The next morning, a new wave of validation came through. One of Stella's biggest investors, someone she had been working with for the past year, sent her a message. "I've seen what's been going on. We're fully behind you. You're doing the right thing. Let's talk about next steps." Her heart lifted. It wasn't just about the legal win. It was about the fact that people believed in her vision. They understood the value of her work. And now, they were showing up in support when it mattered most. Stella spent the rest of the day finalizing her plans for the upcoming product launch. She made sure everything was ready, every detail meticulously arranged, every marketing campaign ready to roll. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and faced too many obstacles to let this moment slip away. As the day drew to a close, Stella stood by her window again, staring out at the city below. The storm inside her had finally quieted. The anger was gone, replaced by clarity. This was her moment, her time to prove that she was more than just the girl who'd been wronged. She was an entrepreneur, a creator, someone who had a vision and the strength to see it through. And when Leah's brand eventually faded into the background, Stella's would only continue to grow. She would make sure of it. The weeks following Stella's decision to push forward felt like a whirlwind. The legal proceedings were moving along. Leah's brand was being forced to cease production of the product line that mirrored Stella's design. But it wasn't just the legal victory that fueled Stella. The real triumph was in how she handled the situation, how she reclaimed her narrative. Her social media posts continued to gain traction, with thousands of supporters leaving comments, reposting her story, and tagging her in messages of encouragement. Influencers in the sustainable fashion space began to take notice, some even offering to collaborate, while others started sharing their own stories about intellectual property theft and the importance of supporting small businesses. Stella's brand had become a symbol not just of innovation, but of resilience. And then came the big moment, the launch of her product line. It wasn't just about showcasing her clothes. It was about showcasing her journey, the story behind the designs, the struggle, and the hard work that went into bringing the product to life. This wasn't just about fashion anymore. It was about empowerment, reclaiming her space in a world that often overlooked creators like her. At the launch event, the buzz was palpable. The room was filled with buyers, press, and influencers, all eager to see what Stella had worked so hard to bring to life. She stood backstage, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. This was her moment. As she walked onto the stage, a hush fell over the room. She stood in front of the crowd, ready to speak. But before she could open her mouth, the applause started. It wasn't just polite clapping, it was loud, genuine, and filled with admiration. For a brief moment, Stella's nerves faded, and she allowed herself to feel the power of what she'd achieved. She spoke briefly about the product line, but then she turned the conversation to something more personal. She addressed the situation with Leah without naming names. She didn't need to. The world already knew the truth. "This product line is not just about clothes," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It's about ownership. It's about taking what's yours and refusing to let anyone take it from you. It's about working tirelessly for what you believe in, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you." The crowd responded with a standing ovation, and for the first time in a long time, Stella felt truly seen. She had done it. She had turned a moment of betrayal into a launchpad for something bigger than herself. The weeks after the launch were filled with excitement and relief, but also a lingering sense of unfinished business. Leah had stayed quiet after their final exchange, but Stella knew the time would come when they would have to face each other. That moment arrived unexpectedly when Leah reached out again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a call. Stella hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Stella, I don't even know what to say," Leah's voice came through, tinged with exhaustion. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. I thought I could get away with it, that no one would notice. I thought you wouldn't care, but I see now how wrong I was." Stella sat back in her chair, the weight of the conversation heavy. It wasn't just about Leah's apology. It was about everything that had led to this point. The betrayal, the secrecy, the friendship that had been fractured by greed. "I'm glad you're seeing it, Leah," Stella said, her voice calm, almost detached. "But what you did wasn't just stealing my idea. It was breaking trust, and once trust is gone, it's hard to get back." "I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me, not right now," Leah replied, a note of sadness in her voice. "But I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry." Stella was quiet for a long moment. She wasn't ready to forgive, but something about Leah's tone, genuine, vulnerable, made her feel like the conversation was a step in the right direction, even if it wasn't the resolution she had hoped for. "I don't know if we'll ever be friends again," Stella said finally. "But I hope you understand that what you did has consequences. You can't just take from people and expect nothing to happen. I had to stand up for myself. And in the end, I did it for myself, for my work, not for you." The line went silent for a moment. Then Leah spoke softly. "I get it. I just wish I could undo what I did." "You can't undo it," Stella said, "but you can learn from it. And maybe one day, we'll both be able to move on." Leah didn't respond, and Stella didn't feel the need to fill the silence. She had said what she needed to say. It was done. There was no going back. As the days passed, Stella moved forward, her mind focused entirely on the future. The betrayal, the legal battles, the emotional roller coaster. It was all behind her now. What mattered was what lay ahead. Her product line, her vision, her growth as a businesswoman. Leah faded into the background, and although part of Stella still felt the sting of their lost friendship, she realized that sometimes the people who are meant to be in your life will stay, and the ones who aren't, no matter how hard it is, will eventually have to go. Stella's brand grew, her product line became a staple in sustainable fashion, and her influence in the industry grew stronger with each passing month. She continued to be an advocate for creators and innovators, sharing her story and offering advice to others who face similar challenges. She had proven to herself and to the world that she was more than just someone who had been wronged. She was a creator, a fighter, someone who would never give up on what was hers. And in the quiet moments, when Stella would stop and take a deep breath, she felt proud. Proud not just of her success, but of the strength it took to get there, the strength to stand up for herself, to protect what she had worked so hard for, and to never let anyone take it from her. Stella was finally truly free.